Alright guys, we're back with some more MX versus ATV Legends. Today I have something I wanted to do for a while, but we were on that Supercross 6 grind, but since that game is winding down just a little bit, I finally found the time to do this. No, it isn't a review. We already did the review after 200 hours in the game. This is for the people that maybe bought the game, returned it because they weren't happy with where it was, the state it was in, or uninstalled it and haven't played it, or just simply haven't tried it out much since these updates have been coming out. This is a video for you, for if you should return to MX versus ATV Legends. But before we get to that, I do want to show you and talk about Rainbow Studios a bit. I have a few different things I want to show you, but Rainbow Studios are the developers behind MX versus ATV. They're the ones that bring us the MX versus ATV game. So this isn't the same Rainbow Studios that brought you MX vs. ATV Unleashed through MX vs. ATV Alive. This studio was bought by Nordic, THQ Nordic, and the first game they brought us would have been this game, Supercross and Supercross Encore. Now, the game was kind of mixed, or had mixed reviews. I mean, I didn't love Supercross. It had a bunch from Alive. I mean, it had the gear, the bike sounds, and some other stuff. It just wasn't my favorite game. But then they brought us Supercross Encore, made some changes and adjustments, brought us a 2017 Supercross replica tracks every week, the Nationals from Alive, different gear. I mean, a bunch of stuff. This game was quite a bit better in my opinion over Supercross, and is my second favorite MX vs. ATV game of all time. I know it's a bit polarizing still because of the whip glitch and the double preload and the huge clutch boost, and people don't like that you can just jump entire sections in one jump, but it did get better. It definitely got better, and they improved on the first game, or the first version of that game. So then we come to MX vs. ATV All Out. We had this game release. It was a pretty ambitious project. It was a brand new game from the ground up, but it released in a very, very rocky state. PC was okay, but it still had its faults. The problem was on console, the frame rate was atrocious. It was terrible, especially on this track and the other two tracks that are at the free ride map that has all the water. The frame rate was really, really, really bad. The bike sounds weren't good enough. The national tracks in the game weren't very good. It had its problems, right? But then over time, they brought us the Pro National replica tracks, the Lucas Oil Pro National replicas, and then they brought us some other really cool DLC. They reworked most of the stock national tracks in the game to make them a bit rougher, a bit better. They redid the 125 two-stroke sound. It was way better, probably the best sounding bike in the game. No, the 4-strokes and the 250 and 500 two-strokes weren't good, but they did at least try to improve the 125. And this track pack DLC was Crescent Lakes and Bighorn, and they tried to do what they didn't achieve with the stock tracks by making them rough and big jumps and just more fun. So the game got better over time. I went back and revisited the console version of this game to see how it was doing after many years because I hadn't played it there, and they finally got it to an acceptable frame rate. No, it wasn't 60, but it was 30, and it was pretty good. I mean, they spent a bunch of time and kept working on this game almost all the way to the release of MX vs. ATV Legends. So with that much work and that much time, they finally got it into an acceptable place, right? Well, then we have MX vs. ATV Legends here, and the same thing with Supercross, Supercross Encore, and All Out. The game released in a bit of a rocky state. I mean, it released with a bunch of stuff or features missing from the game. The physics were questionable. I mean, some people were okay with them. I was okay with them, but it was too slippery. The ground physics were way too slippery. There was some weird bouncing and glitching that could happen if you landed weird or jumped into a corner. The in-air physics were very stiff, but I think the problem with the in-air physics wasn't so much that they were so stiff. I think the problem is we came from MX vs. ATV All Out, and that game was way opposite of this game. You had insane traction, like really grippy, and the in-air physics were very light and very fast, and you could whip the bike around really fast, maybe too fast. So I think that was part of the problem with the in-air physics for me, but they've done a bunch of work. We'll come back to that. The customization wasn't very good. The bike customization was virtually non-existent. We didn't have any graphics kits. We didn't have very many parts to choose from, but they have added in some graphics kits. They've said they're going to add more. They've added in the ability to color customize certain pieces of the bike. And so the bike customization is better and is going to get better. They've already said that. The customization for the rider wasn't very good. We didn't have very many options to choose from. We couldn't really do much with the gear at all. But they've added in more gear sets. They've added in the ability to separate the jersey from the pants so you can mix and match if you want. They've added the ability to color customize certain pieces of gear, even some of the official, actual, real-life brands in the game and in real life. You can color customize some of that stuff, like the O'Neill gear, some of the Alpine Star gear. Even there's a set of Alpine Star boots that's fully color customizable. So customization is better. It isn't where it needs to be, but it is better. And they have plans to keep adding and make it better over time. I do believe they said the next update is going to be the biggest customization update yet. So stuff to look forward to. It is better. They've done and added the 2022 Pro National replica tracks and have done some work on them. I mean, when they first came out, they kind of felt like the same thing from All Out, but then they've adjusted them, changed them to the way they should be, added roughness, added ruts, and scaled them back to fit the way that MX vs. ATV Legends plays. So they've done the adjustments to the tracks to make them more fun in this game. They've also added the Slayground DLC, which is freaking awesome. Maybe one of the best DLCs I've ever seen in any MX vs. ATV, the Supercross World Tour track pack. And that's not to say, I mean, I know it's DLC, but the game releases for under $60. So if you pick up the track pass for $15-20, I mean, you basically have the $60 price tag then, right? So the base tracks are really good too, though. All the Supercross tracks I like, and almost all the outdoor motocross tracks I really like. So the tracks are really good in the game, and I felt like those were good from the very beginning. I didn't really have much problem. The bike sounds are better. They have adjusted on them. The 125 is the best sounding bike still probably, but they're not where they need to be. People were disappointed in the way the bike sounds were the same from All Out virtually, but they have said that they're going to overhaul that system, but I'm guessing that won't be easy and it'll probably take them a while. So it's a very player feedback driven game for updates, and that's great to hear, you know, that the company Rainbow Studios wants to know what we want and then try to implement that into the game. So the game has gotten better. They've added rider reflex similar to Alive and Reflex, where if you don't react the right way you can crash. They've added a bunch of animations to the rider to make him more free and not so stiff on the bike. We're still waiting on leaderboards and some basic features that we should have had in the game from the beginning, but they're always bug fixing, always trying to improve the AI and fix any weird glitches and bugs that are in the game, and they've squashed a bunch of them. I mean, they've squashed and improved a bunch of them, and the game is in just a much better state, in my opinion, than where it was when it first came out. I think it also helps that if you stick with it and play the game for a while, you just get better at it, right? I mean, it's obvious. You play something, you practice it, you get better. But the improvements to the game, the physics, the in-air physics are still pretty similar. They're heavier and slower, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It just takes a bit of getting used to, but they have adjusted on it. The 2 strokes are much easier to maneuver in the air than the 4 strokes, if you wanted to know about that. And the ground physics have gotten better. They've made the slipperiness not so apparent. There's way more traction. You can get into the ruts and stay in the ruts a lot better. And a lot of the bouncing and weird things that can happen on the ground have been improved or completely fixed. So yes, in my opinion, also you got to throw in the fact that in this game has the best first-person cam in the biz. I mean, aside from maybe MX Sim, MX Bikes, MX vs. ATV, even All Out, have really, really, really good first-person cams. So yeah, if you haven't tried it, if you returned it, or if you uninstalled it, or if you just haven't really played the game much since it came out, give it a chance. I mean, it's coming up on 10 months, a year almost since it came out. A lot of stuff has been improved and changed and added, and they've mentioned more is to come. So good things happening with MX versus ATV. But the reason I wanted to show you the beginning part, I didn't have time to talk about it until now, is because it's kind of a track record that Rainbow Studios has had. They release a game, it may not be the best game, but then they work on it, improve on it, adjust on it, and usually get it into a really good spot. I mean, I know we want a perfect game right away, but if you look at history, it isn't going to be that way. So just wanted to show you that. I thought it was interesting. Rainbow Studios are doing a good job. I'm glad to see the updates coming and supporting the game and not just giving up on it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.